Welcome to the Contractor Business Builder podcast. Today we've got the honor of hosting Rob Bruce. He's the founder of BuildTech Advisor. So choosing construction
Mhm.
software shouldn't feel like gambling with your company. Rob Bruce has spent years inside the construction software world and saw that, same problem over and over again with contractors trying to find the right software, being pressured by sales teams, and ending up with systems that didn't really truly fit their operations. So today we're going to break down how to evaluate software properly, as well as services for contractors, avoid expensive, costly mistakes, and choose the right technology that fits your business. So how you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Thanks, Derek. Great to see
Yeah,
you again.
definitely. Likewise, always good to touch base. And yeah, so many decades and years of experience in the field, in the construction industry, in various different aspects and things like that. Can you give our listeners out there a little bit of your background in the industry and what led to Build Tech Advisor?
Sure. Kind of jokingly, but realistically, say that I had my first paying job in construction when I was about 12 years old. And they hired me because I was pretty little back then. And it was a company that replaced foundations on homes. And so I was the skinny little 12-year-old kid that could get into tiny crawl spaces and start digging out for putting the beams in, lift the house, do the new foundation. So that was my first job in construction, and literally just got hooked from there. I mean, it wasn't a glamorous job by any means, but I kind of saw the potential, and just stayed in construction for many years. I worked for home builders. I was a superintendent for a national home builder for a number of years. Then I started moving into the commercial world, and then ended up in public works, building public works projects that range anywhere from 2 million up to 15 or more $1 million. But I kind of fell into the tech side of it too. And so I kept being the guy at the company that whenever something tech would come up or software would come up, I turned into the kind of go-to guy. I mean, it was the first system that I ever used was old green screen DOS back in the early 90s, and that was the first construction management software that I used. So it's been a good 30-year run and continuing, of course, but yeah, that's kind of my basic
Yeah,
background.
fantastic. Wow, yeah, really spanned a lot of the different parts of the industry as far as, residential, commercial,
Hmm.
civil, and then into software and seeing the accumulated, changes and growth in software, and it just continues to escalate. So what more recently with BuildTech Advisor, what was your thought or what did you see as kind of a problem or issue where this needs to change or I can, find a way to do this better? What's the kind of the light bulb effect of a BuildTech Advisor there?
What I kept seeing, and it was because it was the only way to do it, really. Somebody would come to the conclusion that, hey, we have to automate. We need some kind of, whether just an estimating standalone system or a complete project management system. But what you would do is you would go to Google and you would type in what's the best project management system for a home builder, and they'd hit enter. And what's going to come up? Whoever paid the most is what's going to come up. There was no fit. It wasn't that it was the best for that home builder, but people didn't always realize that. And so you're in a hurry, you just click on a couple of links, and then you start getting bombarded. You fill out a couple of forms and you get bombarded with phone calls and emails all of a sudden from 5 or 6 different software companies. And then you might jump on a number of demos. But if you don't know how to prepare for a demo, then you didn't know what questions to ask. And so I kind of came up with the term, you wouldn't end up with the best match software, you would end up with the best salesman, and that's who you buy from, whether it was right software or not. And
Mhm.
then we can maybe later get into the whole what happens after they purchase a piece of software that isn't a good fit when you start getting into the implementation phase. But at
Mhm.
BuildTech Advisor, what we do, and even now people will use AI to help them search for software, but it really is the same problem, because if you don't know how to type in the correct prompt into AI, it still can't give you a good match. I mean, you got to really think through that prompt on what you're going to type in. And so again, AI is going to give you the best match it can, but due to your prompt, it probably isn't going to give you the best one. So BuildTech Advisor contractors can come to our site and they fill out, we put them through, we call it a basic interview process just on screen. They're just filling out some fields and we gather a lot of information. We ask a lot of questions, and then we use a purpose-built AI to match them with the correct software. So it truly is a good match. So they'll get up to three matches, no more than three, because more than
Mhm.
three, it just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. That's super helpful. I know this is a common kind of pain point or issue for a lot of contractors who know they need software, better software. Maybe they're kind of fed up with, with what they're using, but they don't want to go
Mhm.
through that same pain again of, implementing a system, learning it. There's a lot of change management with employees and staff. And once you commit, you kind of sort of go all in or you don't, and it just sits on the shelf and doesn't get you anywhere because it's not the right fit or what have you. So all sorts of issues with not getting the right stuff. And
Mhm.
even with the generic sort of AI searches, there's most of those AIs are really looking at the websites and the marketing of software, not the inside nuts and bolts or a true feel of what your business is like and what the software actually does and how it operates and whether that's a fit. So now you mentioned preparing for a demo, not knowing the right question. So contractors gone on Build Tech Advisor, they've put in their information, they've got three good matches. I'm assuming, book the free trial or demo. How should they prepare for that demo or the free trial to get the most and really understand if this is going to work long term?
Right. You really have to take some time and invest some time into coming up with at least an outline of what I would call almost a case study of how you operate. How does the company currently operate? Really nail down the pain points from the office all the way through to the field. Everybody has to be involved in that process. And then, if possible, email that at least outline of a case study to the person that you're getting the demo from and say, here's what I want to cover. Because what generally, if you don't do that, you're going to end up sitting on a demo with a salesperson guessing what you need, walking you through a bunch of screens, and their job is to wow you. That is their job, is to wow you, and they're going to do their job well. But you're going to go, wow, that looks really cool. But where in reality, that isn't really how your workflow is. They show you some cool tools, but does that really fit into how that company operates? So doing that case study, thinking the process through before you ever get into even scheduling a demo. Make sure you get that done. Biggest tip. And I tell people it's hard to do. It's one of those things that's hard to do. I always tell people to do it, but
Mhm.
probably 4 out of 10 actually do. But I
Yeah.
can't stress that enough how important that is.
Yeah. If you're like you're hiring an employee, like a key senior manager for your business or something like that, you want to vet them. You want to know that there's no gotchas or surprises as much as
Hmm.
possible. And you're going to do a bit of an interview process and take your time because you don't want to just hire someone for 6 months, right? You want to hire someone for years, ideally, that's going to be integral to your business. And every employee and even subcontractors, clients, they're going to have some sort of interaction and need to use these types of softwares. I mean, depending on what it is, but I'm thinking like some of the larger, suites of project management softwares or services for that matter. So really important to, yeah, take your time. Don't rush into it. Another thing I always tell clients, if you're starting a new software, get the monthly subscription to start with. Don't pay for the full year up front because I know many people have to kind of try to go back and get out of a 1 year contract because a month or two down the road they realize it's just not working, right? Do the month, test it out. If it's not working, you just, whatever, you find something different. But yeah, so now involving your team, I think, is super important because it's not just you as the owner, it's going to be everybody on your team. And even if you are tech savvy or you've used, different softwares before and can get into it really easy, does not mean that you can train your team or they're going to have a great experience with it either. So How would you involve the team with that decision or implementation
Mhm.
of a new software?
That is a great question because what so many people forget is that for many companies, I don't say all, but many companies, the real users of that software are out in the field. The office kind of understands more of the business side of things. That's why they work in the office, and the field people understand the field. But the folks in the office sometimes forget that you got you got let's just say 5 people in the office, but you have 25 people out in the field. So though that's why I say the field people are many times the real users of the software. So you absolutely have to bring them in, not just on the decision making, but the preparation. Like I say, when you're coming up with that workflow plan, you've got to get buy-in from them that they want to use a system and get their feedback on what they need out in the field, because the whole point of most of the software that's out there is to tie the field and the office together better than it is. But if you don't have the field fully using the software, I just have to call that a failure, because
Hmm.
now you go back to your old ways. You spent all the money, you spent all the time, but you just revert back to how you were doing it before you wrote the big check.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
getting the field involved is critical.
definitely. That's really the base or foundation of a lot of the inputs to the software. And as you mentioned, typically the largest, section of your business as far as employee numbers that they're going to be using the software, and usually the hardest people to actually get it using consistently and get them trained on. So definitely integral part there. And
Mhm.
I remember working with a contractor. They were super excited about this new software they got for estimating. It was going to do all this stuff, and it looked beautiful. And so he had been in talks, he had done the demos, he started putting some stuff together, and then we got on a call because he wanted to run through with me and kind of show me what it can do. And on that call, we both quickly realized that it was not going to work because it was just taking forever. It was glitchy. It was a kind of a newer software recently
Oh
developed,
boy.
and he was like,
Ouch.
"Yeah, I'm going to call them after this and cancel because this is not working." So sometimes just like you as the owner, you need that feedback and you need other people to use it because everybody's going to use things a little differently. They have different experiences. And sometimes using it together, you realize stuff that you might not just, working on your own time or what have you. So
You brought up a really good point, and it's actually in a number of the blogs that I've written. We got a number of blog posts on our website, but in a number of my blog posts, I highly recommend bringing in somebody like you, because you've been through this experience so many times. A construction company, maybe they have bought some other software in the past, but they've only been through that process 2 or 3 times. You've been through it countless times, so you know what to look for. You know where the pitfalls can be. You know how to ask the right type of questions. And so bringing in somebody from the outside that has experience like you do is incredibly valuable in your selection process.
yeah, for sure. There's a ton of stuff there, but one of the big gaps is often you have people at the software company who can train you. They know their software in and out, but they don't know your business in and out. And you know your business in and out, but you don't know the software in and out. So there's usually that gap there to really dial things in and also not get overwhelmed with like 100 features that you think you need to implement. But what's the most important? How do we implement this? How do you get your team on board, get them comfortable with it before bombarding them with like all of this new stuff? So yeah, lots of different things that can happen there. Now, pretty much every software nowadays is like we have AI. That they're incorporating AI, or maybe they're AI first, and there's some brand new thing on the market. What are your thoughts about kind of the AI conversion of existing software, new features, or new AI softwares coming out? What like not to, like I think a lot of contractors are a bit overwhelmed and not sure. It's kind of new waters, if you will, to tread. So
Right.
what's your take on it, and what would be your suggestions?
A couple of points on that one. And construction is, and it has been and this way, it's getting better, but construction's usually a little bit behind the technology curve. They're still a little hesitant to take on some of the new technology, although I do see that changing a fair amount. And so I've noticed a lot of construction companies are still not really ready to adopt AI yet. And when it comes to the software, like say whichever type we may be talking about, you've got to take it with a grain of salt. It's evolving quickly. It's not quite there yet in construction. There's a number of areas that it does do very well. A takeoff tool. Amazing strides have been done on AI for takeoffs. Some of the things where I've seen it fall down quite a bit is when AI tries to analyze a construction schedule. Doesn't do really very well there, and if you follow that too closely, you're definitely going to get off track because there's just too many things that can affect a construction schedule, and I just haven't seen it done well enough yet that I would go so far as to trust that.
Mhm.
You got your regular scheduling reports, still lean heavily on those. Maybe take AI and scheduling into consideration, but like I say, don't rely on that very much at all. So I'd say probably about a year from now, we'll be at a place where AI will be a lot more trustworthy and helpful in construction. The other
Mhm.
thing that I've seen in a number of pieces of software is they call it AI so they can say they have AI, but really it's just tapping into a knowledge base, right? So they've developed this massive knowledge base, and you'll see that in a lot of like chat bots and things. Chat bot says an AI chat bot. Well, really isn't. It's literally looking at an Excel sheet for answers, is what it's doing.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's not AI. That's just a
Mhm.
voice search, right? That's
Yeah.
all, or a type search, how where you typing or
Mhm.
talking. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm always forward thinking in technology, and I'm a proponent of technology, but I don't think AI is quite there yet in all the areas for construction software.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that a lot. There's been some big strides over the last year or so. And yeah, I think the takeoff thing I've seen effectively used, not obviously not in all situations, but if you're doing kind of similar type projects or your plans are good, the scheduling and estimating, I think the way to think about it is not AI is going to do it for you. It's this is maybe an assistant, like a junior assistant that
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily understand the intricacies of construction, but can kind of get things set up for you, or maybe write out a scope of work or something like that you can
Exactly.
save you some time and things like that. But yeah, to rely on it to actually do your job, or your project managers or estimators jobs for them is definitely not at that level yet. But really interesting to see, and I think a lot of contractors are looking forward to when these technologies will be a little more robust and maybe trustworthy as far as being accurate and all those kind of things. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and not a reason to be afraid of it, but to just take things with a grain of salt and realize
Mhm.
that they can make mistakes, and they're definitely not perfect, in the way that you would maybe like them to be, but definitely good time savers.
Yeah, I would say another way to look at that is don't buy a piece of software just because they show you some really cool AI tools in it. That would
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
it would be tempting because the salesman is going to wow you with a bunch of neat stuff, but
Yep.
it's not ready to be applied to individual companies yet. This is just more global. So still look at the nuts and bolts of software is where you want to focus still.
Yeah. Can you maybe share some insight as to a good tech stack for a company? I mean, you don't have to, say specific softwares, but just types of software that you see like contractors utilizing when as they scale up their company.
Yeah, get into that in a minute. But it brought something up as I was listening to you there is don't overbuy because yes, you're always wanting to think to the future. But if you're looking at a piece of software and it's got all these tools and you're thinking, well, as we grow, yeah, that'll be great. That'll be great. Well, what happens when you do that is it's the software is going to end up being too big for you. You're not going to use all of it. It's got too many features, which is going to make it more complex to implement, more complex to use. Again, the people out in the field aren't gonna want to use it. I just that popped into my head because I have seen that happen a few times lately.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
it's good to think. Realize the software is going to grow with you, actually, because they're always improving the software. So it's okay to buy something that fits exactly where you're at, because as you move into the future, so is that piece of software. And so that way you can buy something that works now, and then it's still going to work for you 5 years from now. And you're not going to have to go through the process again. As far as some certain softwares, I mean, one I'll kind of give a shameless plug to is one called Beam AI, and they do takeoff, and it is AI, and it is something that I've seen, got to know pretty well, and they did it. I'm bringing it up because they understand the construction world and how people aren't always super techy in the construction world. And so what you do is you send your plans, however many sheets you need to take off on, you actually send them to Beam AI. The team at Beam AI, who are the professionals at AI takeoff, does the takeoff for you and then just sends the data back to you. So that's a really smart application of AI. As far as kind of what types of software, again, I think I have to go back to the company doing their needs assessment, and again throwing in the don't overbuy, because when you do your needs assessment, you're gonna break it down into these processes, and you're going to learn that maybe you don't need something that has a big accounting package tied to it, because maybe you're using Zero or QuickBooks or whatever, and it piece software ties nicely to QuickBooks or Zero or something. Again, it's that going back to the don't overbuy, but go through that needs process, and that's going to help you determine exactly what kind of software you're going to need. And again, that's something that using Derek for can help you come up with that needs assessment.
Hmm.
And the time
Yeah.
and the time invested there is absolutely going to save you money down the road. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a huge ROI right there.
Yeah, for sure. Getting expert advice from people that have actually used these softwares and matching like BuildTech is going to save you so much time and energy and effort and frustrations or headaches that could pop up in the future. Wise words there, definitely with don't overbuy. I'm a big proponent of using less software, not more software. I think as a company, the goal is not to plug every little niche thing you need to do with a different type of software that looks cool, but to have a few key pieces of software that really your entire company is familiar and comfortable with and can overlap into all the rest of the business and processes. And usually you can find workarounds with if you got some of your basics covered, you can usually find little workarounds or little process changes to make software work, even if it maybe doesn't have quite the feature that you need right at this moment. So fantastic. Really appreciate your insights here, Rob. What's the best way for people to get their hands on, BuildTech Advisor or work through it? What should they be thinking as far as getting that BuildTech working for them?
Really, it's very easy. You just simply go to BuildTech Advisor and you click on a button that says Get My Matches. That's going to start just walking you through our process. It takes less than 10 minutes to fill out the interview form. So it isn't some huge process. We've obviously spent untold hours coming up with asking the right questions. And so usually within about takes about hour, maybe 2 hours, you'll get the up to three matches emailed over to you in your inbox. Reason that it takes a little bit of time because AI can do it in a second, right? I mean, AI will bam pop up these matches. But again, like I say, AI, even though we built a purpose-built AI engine to help us make these matches, we still check them with a human.
Hmm.
So a human is gonna look
Yep.
at the matches that were made. The human is going to read through those interview questions and make sure that those matches are correct or correct them if they're not. And then at the same time, get ready to do your needs assessment, your workflow outline, whatever you want to call it, and then
Hmm.
start setting up your demos. But like I say, it's going to give you up to 3 matches, and it gets so confusing if you try to do it on your own because you're going to keep looking at different software. I've seen people get upwards literally of 10 demos from software companies. How can you
Hmm.
possibly keep track of all that? How at the end of all those 10 demos and think of all the sales calls that are going to come in, the sales emails that are going to come in, that's going to be your full-time job trying to manage that. And at the end of the process, how can you possibly remember which one did which? I mean, I don't care if you do a spreadsheet or not. I mean, it's just too hard. So
Hmm.
BuildTech Advisor, we speed the process up, save you the pain of going through all that, getting bombarded with endless sales calls from endless software vendors, et cetera. And you end up with a very, very close match. I
Fantastic.
think that
So we'll put the links to BuildTech Advisor in the description of the video or audio, wherever you're listening or watching. Go check it out. Even just answering those needs assessment questions have value in and of themselves. You'll often discover people like going through that process of like you, Rob, who has extensive knowledge with different software and construction companies, just having the right questions to ask and providing the right information in and of itself will help you clue into oh, I never thought about that, or you actually have to like
uh,
communicate what you want. And it kind of goes back to before with the demos of just getting the right questions and making sure that you're actually thinking about the right things when you're approaching getting some new software. So go click the link, get signed up with BuildTech Advisor, get some good matches, get better software. And thank you so much for coming on here today, Rob.
thank you, Derek. Great talking to you again. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.